Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to TestMu Com 2026. My name is Bhavna and I'm your host today for this session. Before we begin, a small request. If you're enjoying this conference, share your experience on LinkedIn and X. Use the hashtag TestMuConf and tag us. Show some love. Now, let me introduce our speaker, Pramod Yadav. Pramod is a test engineering manager at ABN AMRO Clearing, a test automation expert, mentor, and open source creator behind tools like RunRight and Agentic SemVer. He also shares his learning on his YouTube channel. So, about this session, we all know that AI agents have become a great equalizer. Things once reserved for a select few people is now possible for every engineer. So, Pramod built a VAT filling app in under 2 weeks and PR review, MCP server, and more. So, now I'm going to hand this stage to Pramod. The stage is yours, Pramod. Let's get on with the session.
Thank you, Bhavana. I hope you guys can hear me. Am I audible? Yes. Okay. Cool. Okay. Perfect. So I'll give a brief introduction. My name is Pramod. I live in Netherlands. I'm married. I have two kids. And in my free time, basically, I'm a bit of a tech enthusiast. So I like to learn new stuff. Build new solutions, and like to solve problems. The topic for today's talk is look old problems with new eyes. And I think I chose this topic because I was looking back at basically what I did last year. And like Bhavana mentioned, I have built a couple of applications. I built a product application for wet filing, um, which I intend to go live with real customers somewhere end of this year or next year. I have built solutions for software engineering, which I think can be used across tech stacks and across organizations. And I've also built applications for demo purposes. And um, I think if I think about it, the underlying core idea behind it is like, how am I able to do all this stuff? Is the constraints and the bottlenecks that were there until, let's say, last year, do not exist anymore, right? And that's the central theme. Like, if I'm able to build a product, I might have not been able to build a product, let's say, 2 years ago, even though I'm pretty technically good, but it's mostly in testing space. But now I'm able to build full stack applications. And the speed with which we are able to build solutions, it's also faster than ever. Now, I can go and look into any of these products, but I think a better idea would be to at least see how to build products right. I think that's something which could be a good takeaway for you guys from this session. So maybe I would first like to ask a poll, and if I ask, um, let's say, that how would you rate your understanding of continuous delivery? So let me, Bhavna, I don't know if you can drop the poll or if I should click on publish the poll. Let's see, chat. Okay, I don't see the poll, so let me publish the poll. Okay. Uh, okay. So here is a poll for you guys. If someone asks you, how would you rate your understanding of continuous delivery? What would you answer? So let me just pause for a couple of seconds and let me allow you guys to, um, um, answer this poll before I go any further. So let's wait. Do you guys see the poll? By the way, I've clicked on the publish button, but I don't see the poll. Um, published. Okay. I can use some help. Oh, I see the results. Okay. So I think it's good to see that 43% feels like it's a basic understanding. 29, they know some concepts, but not thoroughly. So it's almost, if you look at it, 71% of the audience is still not very clear about the concepts of continuous delivery. So in my opinion, if I can first show that, like how a good process of building, testing, and releasing software looks like, with examples, like with real examples, then I think we can look into some of these applications which are built and where it fits into picture. Cool. So let me share my screen, and let's start with share screen, window, studio, share. So on my screen, uh, we have a continuous testing and a continuous delivery setup diagram using feature toggles. I will paste this um, um, into the link of this in the chat. So let me go back, and maybe I can also test if this is still visible to you. Let's see. I hope my screen is visible. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the diagram. I don't see any message. Okay, let's go back. So typically in a continuous delivery setup, there are a couple of swim lanes that we can break the whole delivery pipeline into. So for example, we have swim lanes, let's say for planning stuff. We have swim lanes for building software, like a preparation phase. We have swim lanes for something called a commit phase, where you can do some pre-commit checks. We have a swim lane for continuous integration, where basically all the checks in the pull request happens before something gets merged into the main branch. We have a swim lane for continuous delivery, and then if we use, let's say, uh, continuous delivery using feature toggles, we can actually decouple our deployments from our releases, right? And I'll show an example of not just in theory but also in practice, for example, how this was being created. So let's spend some time on this. In planning phase, I think you should see some stuff which is familiar to all the QAs. So typically in a planning phase, if I zoom in a bit, let me also check with audience if this is visible or not. Uh, is the screen visible to you guys, the diagram, or should I zoom in a bit more? Um, don't see any
Pramod,
answers.
we are seeing double screen as of now, so
Yeah. If I click on this diagram, can you see the diagram?
you need to zoom in a bit.
I'm to zoom in a bit, but you do see the diagram, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Is this readable now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I was saying in the planning phase, you will see a swim lane where most of the stuff will be familiar, irrespective of your background. So the planning phase is typically on by a product owner, where product owner adds a new user story. The team comes together for a refinement session. Uh, Based on the priority, the team is added to a sprint. And if you're using feature toggles, feature flags, you can also create a feature flag for that particular feature using a feature toggle solution. So here, for example, I've given an example of launch darkly tool, but it could be anything. Uh, the people who are new to feature toggling solutions, it's essentially a way in which you can control your new functionality versus your existing functionality. So it basically gives you two configurations with the same keys. So you can have things like feature flag being off for production, but it is on, let's say, for your dev or test environment, so that you can test it. So nothing new here apart from this feature flag option that you see. Once the ticket is being added to the sprint, a developer can then basically create a feature branch or a bug fix branch based on what kind of change this is, and they can create a feature toggle or a placeholder using the feature toggling tool, and they can make necessary code changes. Right now, in the past, all this work was done by people, but now, based on my own personal experience, agents are pretty good with doing all this stuff, and I have built a couple of products, and I can show how the app was being built, but also what kind of checks did I put in over there. Then once the developer clicks on stage the files and initiate a commit, uh, the flow goes inside a commit phase. What is a commit phase? Commit phase is a phase where you can use uh, inbuilt capabilities of Git, where you can run stuff at different instances. So for example, if you want to run formatting checks, or even if you want to automatically format your code, if you want to lint your code, if you want to check for passwords, if you want to run your only change unit test or integration test, all that stuff can be done. But pre-commit or commit doesn't really mean that everything has to run on pre-commits. Git has many commit triggers, so that, for example, if you want to run your system test only when you want to create a pull request, you can also do that. It's like sort of on a pre-push sort of an event. If I show like very briefly of how it looks like, let's say if I go to one of my projects, Textly. This is the app which I created for building wet filing. And for example, Husky is a pre-commit hook which I used. So I used pre-commit hook for running all my tests, doing linting, staging, everything else, and a pre-push to basically run my affected playwright test just before I create a pull request. Let's come back. When everything succeeds, the code gets committed. But if there are any issues, there's a feedback that goes back to the developer that something is wrong, and they have to do to fix something about it. Oh, let's see. I see with feature flags. Scroll down. Scroll down. Zoom in a bit. Okay. Let's see. Now, in case when the code gets commit, the question that developer would ask is, are they ready to create a pull request? If the answer is yes, they can basically create a PR. But if the answer is no, they'll keep on adding more commits until the feature is ready to be published to production. Now, in case of apps, releasing an app might just mean giving a tag about on which particular date the app is being released. But if you're releasing a library, you might have heard about semantic versioning. Semantic versioning is a concept where where if you have any major breaking changes, you update the major version. If you have any new features, you update a minor version, and if you only have bug fixes, you update a minor version. Now, in the past, there have been some solutions that are used in industry, which are a little bit very fragile in the sense that, let's say, if you have a library, the decision is taken by a developer, and if, let's say, the developer accidentally gives let's say, a feature branch as a patch branch, or vice versa, or if they are doing actually breaking changes but they call it as a patch, it can have a lot of impact for the downstream consumers, right? So this was one area where I realized that instead of using existing solutions which are very dependent on the syntax of the uh, of like a commit, or the syntax of a branch, can I do something here which can give us more reliable results, right? And I created a solution called Agentic Semantic Versioning, where I um, integrate Claude SDK, Agentic SDK, in the workflow, and we get something like, let me see if I can show TaskFlow. Let's go here, and what we do is we have repositories. No, I'm in the wrong repo. Agentic Semantic Versioning. And what I actually do is, if you look at some of the pull requests, based on the nature of file changes that are going in a particular PR, the agent is able to basically analyze and see if those changes are breaking in nature. So in that case, it becomes a major change, or if it's a minor change, or if it's a patch change. And this process actually happens as a part of your pull request, right? I mean, typically, semantic versioning happens after the stuff is merged to the main branch, and the library is to be released. But with this approach, we can actually do it as a part of the pull request, because you have all the context of the pull request, and you can take the right call there. If you delay this decision, let's say for another 2-3 PRs, you might not know if the version that you are releasing indeed is a patch minor or a major version, right? So I could see a problem. I could see that the existing solutions were not good enough, and I was able to create a new solution for this particular area. Uh, then we create a pull request to main. Um, and once we create a pull request to main, the flow goes inside. Let's say, let's scroll down. Let's go down. The flow goes inside continuous integration. In continuous integration is essentially we trigger all the workflows with event type pull request. So you can again do all the checks like formatting, linting, your security scans, your license checks. You can automatically run your unit and integration test. You can do code coverage checks if it is, more than a certain percentage or not. We can run our system tests, let's say for front-end application, for back-end applications, and we can do a bunch of policies like uh, are there minimum pull requests for our application, are there any open review comments, do we need a review comments from code owners, should the branch be up to date with main, and what kind of merging policy do we want. Now when I was creating this solution also for my current company, I thought it will be actually good if I can demonstrate with a real application. And if I, let's say, give a brief view of all the checks that I built in this application. So TextKey is the product which I mentioned I built for text filing purposes. And if you see here, I have a code coverage which is more than 85%, resolved issues. I'm doing all the checks about formatting, linting, running unit tests, system tests, build, and uh, other tests about deployment status. Um, I am not going to go into details about, for example, how I build this because I was checking out some of the sessions as well, and I think most of the concepts are common, right? So I think I talked about pre-commit hooks, but if you look into, for example, skills, I have defined test skills, I have defined development skills, so these concepts are pretty common. I also did create some MCP servers. So for example, I think if I look into VS Code, I had some MCP servers, for example, which I created. For example, I created this MCP server to be able to read pull request comments from GitHub, which were given by a particular agent, into my own VS Code terminal. So I did all the good stuff, and I have, for example, tests for backend, and I have um, tests for front end, so like a unit test, a component test. I have system test. Um, did create some agents also for playwright testing, but I think this is the stuff which I think if you guys have been following other sessions, I think most of the people have also touched upon it, right? So rather than this, I would again like to deep dive into that what good looks like in terms of the full software delivery, right? And see where we can bring in all these checks. So in CI, when all checks have passed, then a developer can merge the pull request. If there are any issues, again, the feedback goes back to the developer, and developer can go back and try to fix these issues. Before I go into CD, I want to give a quick glance into, if there are any questions from audience which are worth taking now. Kindly zoom. Okay, good morning. Okay, I don't see any questions, so let me go back. And let's go into continuous delivery phase now. In the continuous delivery, what happens is when a PR gets merged, that's when, and if you're doing a trunk-based development, that's when we basically build an image or we build some libraries. If it's a library, we build a library, push it, let's say, to Nexus or NPM. If you're building an image, you build an image and you push it to Docker or 𝐾𝐲 or whatever you use, right? And then we can, once the deployment is finished, we can automatically deploy the image to our test environment. You can see we might not even need multiple environments if you use feature flags, because you have a new change that needs to be tested, and you can hide the existing production change. So you automatically deploy the image, and basically you can, once the deployment is finished, you can do a full or smoke automatic regression on it. The same thing can be done for performance test if there are any performance tests that are necessary for that particular change. So these are basically, this is on demand. This is something that happens almost all the time. And you can also do any functional exploratory testing in the test environment. Now, I also used agents to do exploratory testing, and I think I must say that the results which I got from agents from exploratory testing were pretty impressive. So I think this is an argument that we keep hearing, in the community, that um, Yeah, but what about exploratory testing? Agents can do all this stuff, but not exploratory. But my experience is it can do a pretty good job with PR reviews. It does a pretty good job with doing exploration of application. So yeah, it's pretty reliable and pretty handy. Once the tests are successful, typically um, the story gets marked as completed in Jira or whatever tool is being used. And I think the question then becomes, is the team ready to basically deploy this to production, right? To do a beta testing in production? Because sometimes to build a feature, you might have to do more than one feature before it can be pushed to production, right? If the answer is no, you keep on adding more functionality. If the answer is yes, then you can basically consolidate all the changes. You can create a change request, and once the change request is approved, you can pick the specified artifact or image, and you can deploy the feature to production, right? Typically, when that happens, you want to keep the production feature flag to off, and you want to keep the testing rule sets to be on for certain users or location. Now, what this means is even though you have deployed a feature to production, the feature is still not live, to your users. And why do we do that? We basically do that to reduce the blast radius of the impact if something goes wrong, right? So essentially, what you can do is you you are darkly launching a feature into production, and you're launching it, let's say, for a subset of users based on location, based on geography, based on family and friends, and you can first test it with those people for, let's say, a period of 1 or 2 weeks, and only when you're confident, you can release it to a wider audience. So once the team is ready to release it to production, a product owner can basically add targeting rules, and you can do a canary release to a small group of customers. You can do beta testing with a small group of customers. You can do A/B experiments where you release the same feature, let's say, to two different groups, and see which one has got more traction. And you can monitor for performance or functional issues found in production. If there are any issues found in production, then basically you are even better equipped to deal with them, because you can check if the issue is behind the feature toggle. If that is the case, you can basically do instant soft rollbacks uh, within microseconds, right? So your impacted customers don't have to wait for somebody to come, create a hotfix, and live with the issue for long. So you don't need any hard rollbacks. If you do soft rollback, you don't need any hot fixes. So this is a pretty good way of delivering software. Now, sometimes the issue is not behind feature flags, but it's behind, let's say, another part of code which is not behind feature flag. Then the question is a rollback to last stable version possible without data loss? If the answer is no, if the answer is yes, you basically redeploy the last successful deployed artifact from whatever your source is. But if the answer is no, that's the time you actually go to a hotfix branch, and you create a hotfix branch from your main branch, and it still goes through the same checks that I've shown above. Um, if there are no issues reported, you can do a full release to everyone by removing targeting rules. And based on the user matrix, you can decide if you want to create new user stories or not. So if you, I've dropped the link of this particular diagram in the chat. And if you understand this properly, I think you will have a very good understanding of how software is built, tested, and developed across, uh, you know, um, in companies, for example, which use continuous delivery. Now, there was one thing which I wanted to do was, once I created this diagram, even though this diagram is, in my opinion, I think it's pretty intuitive. It explains the concepts well. But I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I can show this in practice? So similar to this agentic semantic versioning solution, what I did was I created an app to basically demonstrate. So if I go to TaskFlow, I created an app to uh, to demonstrate trunk-based development with feature toggles. And if you look into this app's pull request, I come here, you will see that there are some commits that will be deployed only to CI. There are some commits that are deployed to staging or production. And if I go and look back into the configuration, let's say if I look into docs, if we feature flags, source, configuration, there's a different configuration for each of these environments, right? So for example, for a staging environment, I am only exposing 2 parameters, but when it comes to a CI environment, I'm exposing more parameters. When it comes to production, it is just working with defaults. And if you look inside, for example, these three applications, which are actually deployed, so this is not localhost. So this is my CI environment where, let's say, a developer is working on new features and they are bringing in new functionality like task dashboard and export CSV. Is the exact same commit which is giving us this functionality plus, let's say, commenting and linking. But if I go to a staging environment, you will see the dashboard is gone. The export feature is gone. The linking feature is gone. So it's the same commit which is deployed like we saw here. Um, TaskFlow is the same feature which was deployed everywhere, but the behavior is different everywhere, right? So you don't see, for example, committing and linking here. So I realized it became very easy, to convert our uh, ideas like on paper into actually something which is real and tangible, right? So this is again, I'll drop the link for this directory. Let's see, what was it? Probably here, TaskFlow. So if I drop the link, you can actually use this repository to demonstrate this concept, not just in theory, but also in action, right? So let me drop it here. So I have a repository for demonstrating trunk-based development with feature flags. Then we have a repository which can essentially do, um, let's say, agentic semantic versioning, which is essentially looking the old problems with new eyes. And let me drop a link for that. Um, and and then, like I said, I also have a repository. I mean, I cannot drop the link for this because this is the product which I'm building in, but you see all the same concepts that most of your teams use to work with Agentic, like, having a skills file for development, testing, having agent files defined, having Copilot instructions, having an MCP servers for doing different stuff. All of that is present here. Um, Now, looking at the time, I think I would like to first ask the survey again. I first want to check if this explanation made sense to you. And if I ask the same poll, let's say, where was the second one? Um, let's see. Yeah, after the session. So yeah, so I see the results. Maybe you can put in your votes. If how would you rate your understanding of continuous delivery after this session? Is it way better? Is it still the same? And if there are any questions that you would like to ask me, probably I can take those because I think it's always good to keep it more communicative. Um, you know, uh, yeah, okay, still the same, way better than before. Okay, so we have some improvement, but not as much. Okay. Um, are there any particular topics that maybe you're curious in? Because if not, then maybe I can wind up with some final thoughts on this. Okay. Maybe one of the things which I realized when I was building all these products is that in the past, industry has divided software engineering into, let's say, uh, into different roles, right? So let's say if you want to build a feature, there's somebody who tries to review the requirements. There's somebody who's trying to build it. Even in building, you have a front-end engineer, you have a back-end engineer. Um, there is someone who would basically be doing the testing. Someone might do automated testing. Then you have architectures, you have ops people. But from my own experience, I realized with agents, if you have good amount of or like decent amount of understanding of how software is being built, all these roles can be done by one individual. And what it means is, I mean, in the past, I can imagine why we would need multiple roles because it is too much of knowledge for one person to acquire in all these areas. But I believe with agents, it might be possible in the future where, let's say, instead of breaking the rules horizontally, teams might break the rules vertically. And what I mean by that is, if there are 10 features instead of 5 people testing the same feature, it might very well happen that um, each individual is responsible for one feature end to end. So there are some rules which I think might have an impact, and in a way, we can actually now do more with agents, than we've been able to do in the past. Think yeah, that's my final thoughts, and maybe I don't know if I ask a final poll, if do you feel brave enough, let's say, to try and build awesome ideas that you've been sitting on? I'm wondering what your answer would be. Okay, I'm glad to hear that people are now, yeah, at least feel more confident, to build products. I think we are 10 minutes before, but I think I'm done with the concepts which I want to share, Bhavna. So if there are any questions, I can take it. Otherwise, we can also probably wind it up early.
Thank you so much, Pramod. That was truly insightful, and the infographics that you made were amazing. Now let's open the floor for questions. Let me go to the Q&A section. Okay. So Paul here is asking, how can AI help facilitate in a helpful and not overarching way, looking at fresh ideas with fresh eyes?
Um, the way AI can help is basically bridge the gap between having the right idea and to build the product. So I mean, if I give an example about the VAT filing product which I built, or even the agentic semantic versioning solution that I built, the part that helped me build the solutions is I had a very good clarity on what kind of solution I wanted and what I did not want, right? So having a good clarity, having good, giving good requirements and clear requirements to the agents will help you derive with better results. If the requirements itself are fuzzy to you, the agent will just try to do some guesswork. But then I think it's more like a unsurety in, unsurety out kind of scenario. So still having a good clarity on what you want, giving some ideas about how you want it. So for example, with semantic version, I knew that uh, eventually agents have a very good context about the code that's in the repository. And if I want to understand if the change that you're bringing in a PR is a breaking change or not, code actually has a very good context. If I'm doing a bug fix, or if it's a feature, or if it's a breaking change based on our contracts. So it should be able to take that call if I give it in all the right files. So yeah, that's my answer. You need to have good clarity about the requirements. And I think once agent builds something for you, that exploration and acceptance testing is going to be super useful. Like even though in the past I've been more of a automation heavy guy, but I realized with agents doing most of the heavy lifting, if we can actually verify and see whatever agents have created is what we needed, or did create something that I don't want.
So there's another question. What made you pick feature flag over short-lived branches for TaskFlow trunk-based setup? Was it a scaling problem, a CI speed problem, or something else?
So it's not picking over short-lived branches. We are picking short-lived branches, but sometimes, especially like in any complex application, right, where you have multiple teams working in, um, if you want to build something that does not break other teams' features, you have to compromise. Either the short-lived branch will become a long-lived branch, right? Because the feature needs to have so many things that if you launch it, it will break stuff for others. Um, or you risk breaking stuff for others. So it's not a if or situation. We want to have short-lived branches, but we want to have them behind feature flags, so that if you want to test your own feature in isolation, based only, so a feature is available only for you, and not, let's say, for everyone else, you can do so. So yeah. And can you repeat the question? I want to ensure that I have not missed out a part. So one was about why did I choose it over short-lived branches, and what was the second part, which was there?
Was it a scaling problem or a CI speed problem
It's
or
more of a
something?
scaling problem. I think feature flags cannot help with scaling. It's more of a scaling problem.
So there's another question. Is there a risk of over-reliance on AI for driving ideation, for problem solving? How can critical thinking be amplified instead?
I think There's an absolutely a big risk of you know big risk with over reliance on AI. I mean, it's something similar to this. Like when I was building products in the past, I was building it by myself, and then when things went wrong, I was also debugging them myself. And debugging and by failure is how you learn stuff, and that's how you basically remain sharp. Now what has happened is in the past, especially at least in this year, uh, agents have lived up to my expectations so well that most of the times I've been offloading my task to AI, right? And then, of course, it comes with a risk that over a period of time, it can happen that I might lose my hard skills. The good thing is, like I was reviewing a project structure just a couple of days ago. I was, and we have lost our agentic access for some time. So I was still happy to see that I've not lost that touch, but it's a real risk. I mean, what you don't use, you lose. It's like muscles is the same. Um, and to be honest, I don't have a good answer for that because it's like the more you offload your work, the less you, uh, yeah, the less you will start remembering stuff. So yeah, that's a real concern.
Another question. Which old testing problem do you think AI is finally cracking?
Um, Let me think. I mean, it's not just testing problem. We did some pilots also in our organization where we used AI for everything. So we used AI for generating unit tests. We use it for generating component tests. We use it for generating system tests. We even use it to generate exploratory results. And it fulfilled on uh, like it did really well on all of these areas. We also added use it for writing mutation tests, which could take a lot of time. I mean, in my opinion, I feel like more than testing, it has an even bigger impact. Like until last year ago, I was pretty good with testing. I built some test solutions, but I could not imagine of building a full-fledged application, and now I can. So it feels like yeah, the impact is much more broader than just testing.
Test data, environments, flakiness. Which of these would you attack first with today's tool?
Test data, environment, flakiness. Um, I think the problem of environment happens, especially because when teams don't use, let's say, um, trunk-based development with feature toggles, because the only way you can test a change is if you have an environment for it, right? Because you have to deploy the code to basically see the code. So I think just by doing continuous delivery, the environment problem can be handled. You don't even need AI for it. Then comes the problem about data and flakiness. I think data is one of the reasons for flakiness, but it's not the only reason. Most of the time when teams have state conflicts, you try to use the same data, same account. There are two tests which are trying to work on the same resource, at the same time, is when it happens. So that's more of a design problem, right? That you basically identify um, which are the areas where you can have potential conflict, and you use different data for those tests so that you can still run your tests in parallel without having to run them in sequence, for example. Flakiness, yes, for sure, is a big problem, and I think that's where I feel um, I think the modern toolings like yours and could be really useful. You can have some quality gates, you can identify it and use it for deciding uh, if what calls to be taken over there. So
So we have last question. Who is responsible when autonomous AI agent causes a security incident? The model provider, platform team, developer, or organization deploying it?
I mean, to be honest, like the question of accountability, I have thought about it, and if I really think about it, we can ask the same question also for humans. Like I have now close to 22 years of experience, and in every single project that I've worked, there have been production incidents. Every single project, right? And I've not seen people being fired. So what does accountability means? If you can have an incident and nobody's head is rolling, right? So if that is the case, I think the question of accountability is in my opinion overrated. The way we should look at it is it's a tool. If things go bad, we need to see, uh, can we do something in the tool to basically fix it for us in the next time? And if not, then you basically offload it to human beings. But I think again, the organization should make it very clear for us what does the question of accountability means for them. Because in my opinion, it's yeah, either an agent do it or you do it. If you have a problem, you want to fix it, rather than saying whose head should roll. I think that's not important.
Agree, Pramod. So this was our last question of the session. We are early to finish actually. So that's all we have for today. Thank you once again, Pramod. Thank you for joining. One last reminder: share your takeaways and feedback for this session on LinkedIn and X with TestMuConf. Tag Pramod. If you enjoyed this session, enjoy the rest of the TestMuConf. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Well, do.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Pramod.
Bhavna, and thank you everyone for joining in. Appreciate it. Cheers. Have a good day. Bye bye.